The wait is over. You were waiting, right?
Oh, God. No. Please, no.
The end is nigh. Darwin and Cat are back.
I really want to start off this episode with some sort of takeoff. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the best of guests, but it was mostly the worst of guests. We had a lot of guests on our show, and today we're focused on the worst of times, the worst of guests, the awful guests we had on our show. Do you remember? Are they popping all into your head right now, Kat?
Yes, I am going to throw one out to you, Darwin. Allison Mack from Smallville.
You had one right out of the gate. Worst guess. Is this your worst one ever?
She's top of mind.
Oh, Allison Mack. So my ex wanted her on the show, and it wasn't even on the show. It was on a Saturday. Remember this? We came in because we had to do a Saturday. Every other Saturday, they made us come in.
They made us do a music-focused show on Saturday, 6 a.m. on a Saturday. And we were surly people that early on a Saturday.
And my ex loved Smallville. And I tried to do something nice, and this opportunity came up to, I didn't even know what the hell Allison Mack was. I didn't even know if it was a girl.
You didn't know Allison was a girl. There was no tip off with the name.
Know.
We finally gave in and had her on. Why don't you give some background about Allison Mack?
Well, I think everybody might hear that name and say, that's familiar now. Well, because of Nexium, an Albany-based self-help group that was actually a sex cult led by lunatic Keith. Was it Raniere?
Yes.
I think that's the guy in charge of it. And I just remember her being on it. It was supposed to be self-improvement, but they were like branding people, and they were sex trafficking and forced labor. And they had a brand, the branding symbol, like literally like burned into people like cattle. And we had no idea about this at the time. Okay.
We had no idea. And she came in and we introduced her, and she's droning on and on about her dumb show. We didn't know that she was this high-ranking Nexium member, as you just said, recruiting women, forcing them to be sex slaves, pretty much 3 miles from our station.
That would have been much better story.
Oh, yeah. So, Allison, while you're branding your sex slaves, do you prefer Lowe's or Home Depot for pokers and livestock irons?
Yeah, she was really trying to get your number. I'm just saying, Kat, you might have been.
Oh, my gosh, she was. She wanted to be friends. And I was I'm too tired for friends, lady.
But instead, we're just asking her inane questions about a show we've never seen.
So were you a child actress? What was your big break? Oh, really? A cornflakes commercial. Awesome. Tell us more about Smallville now.
And meanwhile, she's like, Kat, what did we say in an earlier episode? You got a juicy ass. Good for a branding, right?
Oh my God, they'd have a lot of surface area for branding. Absolutely. She kept saying, Kat, I just think you should really come and like check out all the things we have to offer. You know, we'll just self-actualize together. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what that means, but ew.
I do feel like there were a couple of little flirtatious, weird moments in retrospect at the time.
Retrospect, she was the leader of their Nexium's secret society called DOS, and that's where she would funnel the women into that organization to be branded sex slaves for Keith Raniere. There's a tongue twister.
I don't want to ever hear from anyone again that Albany is boring. I'm just saying.
Nothing happens in the capital region. Oh, yeah?
Huh? And the other thing is, I totally forgot about her and that we had her in and everything. Like totally forgot the name until one day I'm watching the news. I just had that, it's one of those moments you're watching the news and you have one of those horrific realizations where you're like, I was in a room with that woman. I know that person. Oh my God. Kind of like the time I found out I had an ex-boyfriend that was a murderer. It's like you see them on the news.
Wait, what?
And you're like, whoa. Yeah.
Huh?
Well, not the one that was into Smallville. He wasn't a murderer.
Oh,
but a
okay.
one.
Okay. Because I had you guys over to dinner like lots of times. So, okay.
No, he wasn't.
I wasn't in danger. What
No.
How did you not tell me that you dated a murderer?
I never told you the story.
No, with mass murderer or just little murderer?
Just one murder.
Oh, okay.
He wasn't a murderer at the time, but he could have been. He could have killed me. It was right before I met you. Dating this guy, he borrowed some money from me and he wasn't paying me back. And it was kind of a lot of money for me at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I really needed it. So I basically said, I'm going to get on the air and say your name and say you owe me money and shame you. I wasn't going to do that.
Oh, the power of the radio.
Yeah. And he showed up, and I was the night guy. It was actually at EQX, and he showed up at like 11:30 with the cash and gave it to me. Okay. And then that was the end of that relationship. Fast forward, I'm watching the news one night, and they mentioned his name was arrested after he stabbed his boyfriend to death in New York City after a fight over owing him money.
Oh,
and
God.
then stole his credit cards and took a limo from New York City up to Manchester. And that's how the police caught him. He was using the dead guy's credit cards to go to grocery shopping. It was weird. So he's in prison.
Do you think the only thing that saved you is you were a popular DJ? Because he thought about it and thought, I don't want to be the guy who killed the beloved night guy on a really cool station.
It kind of freaked me out because I basically was in the same scenario that he ended up stabbing the guy like 40 something. I mean, it wasn't just a few stabs.
It wasn't just a few pokes. Oh my God.
It was
so he was extremely dead.
murder.
That's awful. And I feel so sorry for the victim. And I'm also very glad that you were not one of them.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, you can Google it. Justin Waller was his name. It's crazy.
Oh, I'm going to look him up.
Yeah, his mugshot's definitely
So
scary.
did we have him as a guest on the show?
No, we didn't.
Oh,
We
okay,
didn't.
no.
He was not a bad
He didn't like
guest.
call in from the payphone in prison.
I hope he's not listening to this in prison right now.
I don't know, Darwin. We do need the clicks.
That's true. You know, speaking of which, if you got a friend there's a murderer in prison and they're lonely, there you go. Have them tap subscribe on wherever they get their podcasts. We'll take wherever we can get. Allison Mack, there you go. From
Allison,
prison.
please like and subscribe. We appreciate it. How you doing, by
Yeah.
the way?
I don't know.
It's been a while, Allison. So, Darwin,
The most popular podcast in prison. Sorry.
we'll take it. Who comes to mind when you're thinking of awkward, terrible, awful guests?
I always forget his name, but the one that comes to mind for me is that guy at Edgefest that awkwardly, out of just nowhere, in the middle of a sentence, all of a sudden goes, "I'm autistic."
Oh, okay. That was Travis Meeks from the band Days of the New.
Oh,
They were one
yes.
of our headliners at Edgefest, and that was truly the worst interview we ever did. I didn't know how to recover from his "I'm autistic" comment, so I just brought up his appearance on the TV show Intervention.
Yeah, that was a smooth move.
Thank you.
That was just way to make it. You made it so much more awkward.
Yeah, that actually made it worse. He's like, "Oh yeah, I had a problem, and I was on that show."
I think my response was even worse though. I think he said it and we looked at each other and I think I said something like, "Oh, well, wow, okay, well, that's okay, cool, congrats." Or I said something awkward too. I don't
You did
remember.
say congrats, and I might have said good for you.
We
Yay.
just didn't.
We didn't know.
expect that.
We didn't know what to say.
It was in the middle of like talking about how I wrote Touch, Peel, and Stand, or it had nothing to do with anything. I don't know why he said it.
Said I'm autistic. Oh my
He
gosh.
awkwardly, just boom. That was weird. But I think we made it worse. We were never the people to paint ourselves in a corner like that.
No,
and
we
did
were
in that
usually
one.
pretty good at getting out of any on-air jam. Not that day.
He was a nice guy too, and I felt
was.
bad because he wasn't a jerk.
And there's
He
nothing
was
wrong with being autistic, but when we're talking about Touch, Peel, and Stand, as you said, and he just starts screaming, "I'm autistic," I didn't account for that.
I don't even think we were talking about the song. I think it just came out. It was just the middle of something random. It wasn't even. It was just displaced, and I felt bad. I didn't know what to do afterward. And he's like, "It's cool, it's cool." Like he was just.
He just shuffled off, and they did their set, and they sounded great.
Travis, we're really sorry we screwed up that interview.
Sorry, Travis.
We handled that poorly. There's another one you really were excited about. Maybe you'll disagree. This was a bad interview. Remember when Extreme Makeover came to the Albany area and you were like, "Oh, they're here to help the Nubbins family or something." Do you remember this?
Yes, Extreme Makeover Home Edition. I loved that show, and you'd never seen it, so you're
No.
like, you know what? You take the lead on this interview, and I'll just, you just do your thing.
So this guy's coming in and you're really excited about it. And you're trying to explain the show to me, and you describe, okay, well, your description was, for example, you're like the Nubbins family, they don't have any arms or legs and they're kind of rolling around and they need a new house. So they come and they build the Nubbins a new house. That was your description.
Yes,
So I thought
yeah.
the Nubbins in Schenectady were real. Like there was literally a family with no limbs that were getting a hand. And I was so confused because that's not who they came to help. And then there was this guy like Paul Mayo, like
Paul
I'm thinking
DiMeo.
mayonnaise. Yes, and I didn't get the name right. I was so clueless with it. But they asked him to come on the show. And that's the part where you were like, "Woo, oh God. You said I was going to love him and he was so great.
Oh,
You
yeah,
got so
because the show,
excited.
Darwin, it was sappy and it was schmaltzy, but I would cry every time the Nubbin people got their home. So Paul DiMeo comes in and he was the lead carpenter on the show. And he was the guy with the big glasses. If you ever watched it, ever saw it, just about as we were to go live, he leans over and says, "Oh, I'm not talking about the show. I'm here to talk about Blood Pressure Awareness Month." And I'm like thinking, what the fuck, Paul? So I just let him talk about his blood pressure medicine. And then I kept trying to gently steer him back to the show because I wanted to know about that specific family. And I'm like, Paul, I think, just talk to me for a second. I think they were from Samoa and there were like 12 of them. They had no limbs. They all kind of look like bowling pins and whatever happened to them.
Didn't you try to get on that show before Wife Swap? You did, yeah.
I wrote to them.
What was your story, though, to get on that show?
So you have to be kind of fucked up all over to get a new house. I wrote to them after just kind of a dicey pap smear. And I said, hey, guys, how about just a new kitchen? I mean, you don't have to redo the whole place. I never heard back from them. I never heard back. But yes, I absolutely wrote to them.
And so I'm in the middle of this interview. I have no idea what the hell's going on. He's talking about his blood pressure. I'm thinking he's the gay guy on the show, like the token gay.
Oh, no. He wasn't the designer guy who would make the princess room. I loved him.
But is he a little gay? I never found out.
I don't think so. I think he was not a little gay or at all. I think he had a wife who takes his blood pressure.
Was gay?
Oh, well, maybe she does now, hearing our show.
It was just so awkward because I'm going there like, wait a minute. I don't give a crap about this. Like, and you were really trying to steer other. And then I was like, finally, I said something along the lines of like, so I've never seen the show. Can you tell me a little bit about what the show is? Why are you guys here? Why do you travel around? And he looked at me and I just remember this part. He looked at me and he goes, "No, you can look it up."
Oh, right. Oh, that was awful.
I was like,
he just told us to Google it. We're interviewing you. Okay, let me stop. Hold on. Wait.
It's like, this is incredibly unhelpful, Paul. Thank you. So, and my blood pressure was going up. Meanwhile, Blood Pressure Awareness Month, I am very aware of mine at this very moment in this interview.
And trying to get him to talk about the show was some serious heavy lifting. It was like a freaking boulder up a hill. But I somehow managed. He plugged his blood pressure crap and he got out.
And that was that. And that was another. We had a collection of people that I wanted to bring up. I used to call them the Stern leftovers. Like they were the Howard Stern whack pack people who, for some reason, gravitated toward us. I know we were the Stern replacement show, but we had nothing to do with
that actual show. But it was proximity because we're up in Albany, which is like 2.5 hours north of New York City, of Stern's studio. And some of the whack packers lived in the area. Yeah,
I remember, High Pitch Eric and Jeff the Drunk both were, which one of them's from Burn? Do you remember?
That was Jeff the Drunk. He was from Burn, a trailer in Burn. Yeah.
And he got the hotline number for our studio, which is like the backdoor secret number. Mm-hmm. That's when the boss calls. And nobody's supposed to have that number. Somehow he got it.
Yeah, he got it. He had, remember he had kind of that dead arm, but somehow he managed to dial the number.
You remember the time he called one time, and I regret not recording it and putting it on the air because he would just annoy us. Mm-hmm. And then I heard the same bit on the Stern show not too long afterward.
Oh, wow.
And he called and he was basically saying, we could have had a Stern bit before Stern is what I realized at the time. And I think I don't know if you remember.
No, I don't, but it sounds like he was working out his material before he went to the big show.
Right, but he was actually having a stroke.
What?
So he called and he was describing like having a stroke and how he looked in the mirror and only half was smiling. And he actually had a stroke. That was kind of the non-funny part.
Oh,
and
no.
he ended up calling Howard because I don't think he could get through to Howard, so he called us. I mean, it's not funny the guy had a stroke.
No, but Howard's number is busy. I'll call Darwin and Cat. Nobody's calling them.
Right. And I was like, okay, man, we'll go to Albany Med. I don't know what to tell you. And then a few days later, I hear him on Stern having a stroke.
Oh,
and come to find out he had a stroke. And then sometimes we'd get a call from
It's High Pitch. Now, High Pitch was a total pest. One night we were doing an appearance at the Skyline in Albany. Yeah. And he kept insisting that I put his number in my phone. Cat, you have to have my phone number. Put it in right now. Here it is. I said, fine, High Pitch. Okay. The reason I deleted it from my phone is my now husband's name is Eric, and I would call my Eric, but I would accidentally call high pitch, and high pitch would pick up the phone. I would hear, "Hi, cat." Oh no.
And then you would send some pictures, and he'd be like,
Oh God! Oh, I hope I never did that. Ah, the horror.
"Hi, cat." My
And
characters
it would be so disturbing too to think, "Oh, my awesome boyfriend, what you doing today?"
Oh, they just gravitated toward us too, and it was just I wanted to figure out a way to get Stern's number from them, and they would never give it up either.
No, of course not.
That would've been
that was
cool.
their big gig. They couldn't do that.
I know, but I would love to just talk to Stern and just be like, just to talk to him.
Of course.
Cool. There was another one though that showed up at Edge Fest. I don't know how or why he was there. The one that he almost gave me a heart attack because I had the earplugs in for the noise.
Cabbie.
Yes.
Crazy Cabbie, who recently passed away.
Oh, he
R.I.P.
did?
Yeah, he did.
What happened to him?
He died. I don't
Like
know.
how?
I have
You
to,
don't know
I
how?
have to Google
Okay,
it.
he just
You're gonna
died.
have to look that up. He actually created a bit of catastrophe on the air.
Yeah, for me.
Yeah, we were interviewing
you want
him.
to tell the story?
Yeah, we were interviewing him, and we'd had him on the show actually several times. He would always come up to the station. He was a really nice guy, and it's like, all right, he's from the Stern Show, yeah, and he's actually not a complete weirdo. So we're interviewing him about anything. It was something innocuous, and then all of a sudden he stops and he looks you dead in the eye, and he starts screaming, "Fluck, fluck, fluck." F-L-U-C-K. But of course, we did not hear that. We're live on air. So you said to the board op who's back in the studio, cut, go to commercial. And that was it.
Yeah, I'm like, dump it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was it.
I had earplugs in. I didn't have my headphones on because of the noise.
Okay.
Right? Because backstage we would often have earplugs in, and we had some, I have tinnitus from not wearing earplugs earlier in my career. And I couldn't really hear what he was saying, but he was like, I think he was doing it to mess with me. And I got so mad because I was also yelling at the board op to dump out of it, cut to commercial when they didn't need to. And I just got so mad after that. He got banned at that point.
He got
Like,
banned.
He was not allowed.
Albany was not ready for Fluck.
Well, but the thing was, why did he do that to me? It
Why?
wasn't even
Why
funny.
did he? It wasn't funny at all. Why did he do that? Why did he want to ruin our beautiful friendship?
Well, we did. We did. It's true. We would have him on. Everything was cool. But like the way he looked me in the eye, like, and did that, it was like, buddy, what are you doing? That's so
What the
so
Fluck,
uncool.
dude?
I mean, it's funny now, but so I just looked. I guess he had a rare nerve disorder that ended up paralyzing him and then ended up killing him. So he was in a wheelchair.
Was it ironically
and
called
he was,
Flux disease?
R.I.P. Sir. Sorry about that.
While you're there, do you want to look up Paul DiMeo?
Paul DiMeo.
All these years
Find out
later,
what?
Paul, we finally Googled you.
Paul DiMeo. Is he dead? And what am I looking up about him? I don't know.
No, he told us to Google him. Don't give him
I
the
don't
satisfaction.
care,
Don't do it.
No, I won't be the one search for him this year. We also, I mean, these are the random people too, and the only musician we've really mentioned so far would be the guy who's made an interview awkward. Who's like, I'm autistic, but a lot of these have been random personalities. But we had a lot of bands in, and there was one band I hated after we interviewed, and because they were mean to you.
Yes, I know who you're going to say.
Yeah, know where I'm going. Little backstory though. Whenever we interviewed bands, this was always my kind of idea, and your idea too. I forget who came up with it. That we would have two sets of questions. One set of questions would be the nice set, the fun one. But if the band or artist was a jerk, we would switch to the
switcheroo.
The mean questions. There was one band where only once I remember we picked the mean questions.
And we picked it out. We picked it out of the gate because we usually would start with the nice questions, just kind of ease them into the water as it slowly boils. But 3 Days Grace did not get the nice questions.
Out of the gate, they were jerks. We were on the rooftop. It was a bar, and we're on a rooftop in downtown Albany. As soon as they got up there, they were just out of the gate jerks. Not nice.
Well, as we were walking over, one of the guys was like, ugh, because they were on a press junket and they had to talk to us. They had to talk to other shows like Boo-hoo. You have to talk to DJs for a while. Poor you. So they were just very aloof, very sleepy, and very grouchy. Do you remember what they were plugging at the time, what their album was called?
It was 1X. I will never forget the name.
And this is why they were so mad at me. I said, so your album 1X. And they perk up a little bit and I look at them. I go, what does that mean? Is that a fat girl size?
And they got so mad. They started taking off the headphones to get up
and I said,
leave.
don't get upset. I've lost a lot of weight. I mean, I had some in my closet.
Because the whole album about plus size girls, and you just kept hammering on them, and they were like,
I might have kept on that.
Yeah, and they left. They walked out of the interview, and we found out from our friends on Channel 103.1, our competitor, but we were friends with them. I found out later from Cabbie from Double G, they came over and said, "Oh, those people are jerks at those other radio stations. They were jerks," and they spent the whole interview complaining about us on the other station.
Oh, it was worse than that. They said to our buddy Jason, who was doing mornings over there, they said, "Do you know that C word from across the street? She said da 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 da," and he goes, "Oh, Cat? Yeah, she's cool."
I know they didn't expect us to be friends with them,
No.
Which is great. They were great. Yeah, it's a funny thing. People thought the competing station, and maybe this was unique to Albany. We were friends with the people
guys.
who worked over
guys,
there. Yeah, Channel 103.1 had a great air staff who I respected, and we were friends with them genuinely. And we would go get drunk with them, just go hang out.
We went to a couple movie premieres with them, and
Lobster Fest, we got totally trashed with their program director.
Oh God, Lobster Fest, when they ran out of anything to crack the lobster with, so they handed us a hammer that we had to share.
So yeah, I mean, we had a string of unfunny comedians.
We did. Well, unfortunately, as I've said before, Albany is not like the hotbed of comedy back then that it could have been.
They were just showing up for Nexium.
Did you know, Darwin, that after you left the show, I was forced to run an interview that I was forced to do with a quote unquote real vampire. And I had to cut it up and edit it and put it on the air with no board op. And it was absolute audio garbage. It was just to fill time because I was dying without you. Yeah. How?
Did that
they said, well, no, he wrote a book and he's a real vampire and we think it would be. I think they were just setting me up to fail, actually.
Yeah, that's totally set up for failure. Occasionally guests on other stations would wander into ours, but I remember one, Fly 92, their studio looked into our studio. Do you remember the guests they would have periodically? And we were told there was a rule, and then they ended up putting up a curtain on their window because we kept breaking the rule about not to speak or look her in the eye.
Ah, that would be Chelsea Handler. Mm-hmm. Do not approach Ms. Handler. Do not ask her for an autograph. Oh yeah, that's what we do. We just go around asking people for autographs at the station. Basically, just don't breathe near her.
She didn't like that we were looking through the window at her, which we weren't.
No, we weren't. There just happened to be a window and we were across the way.
Doing our show, paying no attention to her. I don't even know. I didn't know who I'm a celebrity idiot, right? I don't know who these people are.
Who she was. You're like, who's that crabby lady? I'm like, that's Chelsea Handler. She's really famous. Oh, they're putting up a curtain. Okay.
I know who all the dead, like Bing Crosby. I know who he is.
Sure.
He's been dead for decades. But do I know her? I wouldn't know her if I saw her today. So they put up a curtain so when she was there, they had
this modesty panel for her.
There was also other bands that were always kind of on the jerk list that we avoided. Who do you remember as being jerks? Let's see if we have the same.
Okay, Buckcherry and Trapt were always dicks to us.
Yep, both of them. Those have been my next two. 3 Days Grace never talked to us again.
No, but Buckcherry and Trapt, we had to interview a couple of times.
Yeah.
And that was a slog. That was really rough. They were just like kings of the one-word answers.
Just they were not interested at all. And I'd be like, why do we keep having to talk to them? They don't want to talk to us.
Yep.
We don't want to talk to them.
Let's just part ways amicably.
That's true. It was just, it was painful.
Yeah.
It's not a good interview. I think there was a time we would just stop even doing them live. We would just record it and not air it and just send it to the record label.
That's true. I mean, I didn't have that many questions for Buckcherry. Like, what's Crazy Bitch about? Is that about a person? I didn't care. Because if you're not nice to us, I'm just not inspired to ask you really great questions. What the fuck do you ask Buckcherry anyway?
What kind of in-depth, interesting interview are you really going to have with a band that wrote a song called Crazy Bitch?
Yeah, there's that.
There's not much going on there. There was one morning you came back into the studio and you said, Darwin, do you ever just realize, and without a second thought, that our job entails walking through the hallway and walking by Mr. Food, Ronald McDonald, and Jared from Subway and not batting an eye? And I'm like, yeah. And then all of a sudden in our studio is
Jared from Subway with his big pants. Now, he wasn't even scheduled to come on our show because a lot of the times these big stars like Jared, oh my God, would skip the rock station. But he just came right in and he was, those big pants that he fit all his victims in. I mean, that he could fit in before. What? He's locked up. Oh, do you think he's listening?
We are the most highly rated podcast in prison.
There you go.
We established that earlier today, right?
Jared, smash that like button. Thanks.
Here's the thing with him. He was a jerk, and he lost all that weight, but he was still ugly.
That's true. He couldn't lose the face.
What's the point in losing all the weight if you're still ugly?
Do you remember the morning? This had to be the same morning. I just said, I found someone in the hallway who was a very colorful character, and I brought him in. I said, hey, Darwin, I just wanted you to meet Ronald McDonald. And he's just standing there. Hi. I just wanted to bring him by and say hi to you.
And I think I just laughed. I mean, it was just like, why?
I was hoping Hamburglar would be there so I could bring him in too, but no.
And we'll talk about our good guest someday, but Mr. Food was there that day too. And he had the hots for you. He would always hit on you. He'd be like, hi, cat.
Mr. Food is a Northeast food icon. How would you describe Mr. Food if you didn't grow up in that region?
He started off on WRGB and became very famous, and he just kind of was the food guy, the cooking show guy, and his phrase was like, "Ooh, it's so good," or something like that. I don't know. Everybody loved him. He was kind of like the Tom Jones of cooking.
Well, like you throw your underwear at him, or okay,
yeah. And he was. I mean, he died a while ago, but he had the hots for you.
Okay.
You let him down. He died without ever getting your number, Cat.
Yeah, well, he was no high pitch. I'll tell you that.
But speaking of getting numbers, you got a job offer once from a guest.
I did. Oh, okay. Now this guy passed away too. Dennis Hoff from the Bunny Ranch. They were a big, famous legal brothel in Nevada, where I am currently in Nevada.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Wow. Yeah. And he said, hey, Cat, I got a job for you if you want to start. It'll start at over 6 figures. And here I am busting my butt on the radio making nothing. And I'm like,
You missed out on that opportunity.
I missed out. Yeah.
Can I just point something out as we're going through this list?
Yeah.
That a lot of our bad guests are either incarcerated or dead. I don't know if this is a good episode now, because the ones that are still alive better watch out. Paul DiMeo, or whatever his name is.
DiMeo.
I don't know.
Okay, here's one who's still alive. Do you remember Art from Everclear? He headlined one of our Edge Fests one year.
Yes.
Okay.
I can't believe that was our headliner one year.
Oh, I know. He was an okay interview. He was just kind of doing a real average interview, but I was really excited to ask him this one question. And if you know me, like you do, Darwin, you'll understand. Mm-hmm. I said, Art, tell me about Everclear's cover of Our Lips Are Sealed by the Go-Go's. And he said angrily, that's a loaded question. And he was so pissed. And I said, no, it's not. I love the Go-Go's. And I was totally sincere.
You're a huge Go-Go's fan.
I absolutely love the Go-Go's. Started in punk rock. Watch the documentary on them. That was on Showtime. Really great early punk rock band that became a big hit. And I was so excited to see that somebody covered Our Lips Are Sealed. But no, it made him mad.
You waited all day to ask him that question. Like,
I was leading up to that.
So excited.
I thought he would say something like, "Well, I'm a big fan of Jane Wiedlin." No,
You're like, not at all. And so years later, or years before, I forget the time. He was performing once at a show at a place called the Pickle Barrel in Vermont. I don't even know if it's still there.
I remember that place.
Yeah. He was performing at the Pickle Barrel. He stopped the show at some point because some guy that was a fan got a little drunk and tried moshing or whatever. I don't know. Tried to start a mosh pit.
He had a little too much pickle juice.
And this was like an old rustic looking barn theme. You don't mosh there. It's not mosh pit, right? Yeah. So you don't do that there. And he stops and he starts telling the fan off. And he says, how old are you? I don't need to know. You're young. You know what you're going to be when you grow up? You're going to be a gym teacher because losers like you. And I'm like, what? And then I see these guys that are a bunch of gym teachers who are there at the show just put down their beer and like flip them off and walk out. They're like, we're a bunch of gym teachers. F you, man. Like, and he doesn't
Art,
care.
He doesn't look like the kind of guy who can climb a rope in gym class.
No, and he didn't care. And he's like flipping off the gym teachers. He goes, I don't need no gym teachers as fan. I was like, this is so awkward and weird.
Playing the Pickle Barrel, and that's probably like his one fan left. And I was you know what? Now I'm just gonna say it. Now that you said that, I was holding back when you said, he headlined our festival. At that time, Everclear would open a supermarket. If you had the little fee that they would take, they would do anything. And it was very not special to have Everclear headline your festival.
And our boss was all excited about, like, the ops manager was the VP of programming.
He's so excited.
And we were like, Everclear?
Yeah, it's a slippery slope to the Pickle Barrel.
Yeah. I used to really love Everclear. Like, AM radio is my favorite. That's a great song.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Santa Monica, Father of Mine. Oh, that would make me cry.
So, yeah, so they had their
Everything
day,
makes me cry. So.
You're very emotional. And I got to throw out one other one that when we were recording our Christmas episode, was the guest I totally forgot about, Elmo and Patsy, but I don't remember which one because they're divorced. Patsy is now Elmo's
Screw
ex.
you, Elmo. So that
But I
was.
think it was Elmo with his new woman.
Ooh.
Right?
Elmo's upgrade was with him. So these are the grandma got run over by a reindeer people.
Yes, but just Elmo, because Elmo had a new album out, and it was like something horrible, like Redneck Santa or the Dr. Elmo Bluegrass Christmas or something. Yeah, it was Redneck Santa. That's what it was. He was out touring the new album, and they for some reason had him on it was a follow-up to Redneck Dracula or something.
Why? We're playing Tool and Static X and Drowning Pool and apparently Elmo.
So they brought him in, and there was one of those, you guys have to put this guy on thing, right? Do you remember we forgot about this?
Yes.
And it was a terrible interview, and it was awful, and it was embarrassing. And that's right, because I didn't understand that Patsy was no longer in the picture, but the woman with him wasn't Patsy.
Oh, no.
But I didn't understand that.
This was going nowhere good.
And I kept calling her Patsy.
Of course
and he
you
was
did.
not happy about that.
The new lady in a man's life doesn't want to hear that. Doesn't want to hear the old broad's name.
And he was pretty upset that we didn't do research on the guest that just showed up at our door. Like,
sorry, Elmo. You weren't high on our list today.
And I feel like you might have said something about we have the people behind the most hated Christmas song ever on the show today or something. Like, I don't know. I feel like there was some sort of shade.
That song is polarizing, I will say. Yeah.
Here's I'm okay with it. So now that we're talking about Elmo's probably dropping dead as we speak, right?
Yeah, we just killed him.
Elmo's 88, and this is it. Sorry, Elmo. We ruined. We killed.
As of our recording here, he's still alive. Mm-hmm. There are no guarantees by the time this drops.
Or he'll end up incarcerated, because that's the other thing that happens to.
He'll die in prison next to Jared.
One last question going back to, can you imagine? So I think that's pretty much a good recap of the terrible guests we have. I don't, does anyone else come to mind? I think
no, but I think just to recap, don't ask 3 Days Grace about fat girl sizes.
Correct.
Obviously, you don't ask Art about the Go-Go's, and don't call Paul DiMeo Mr. Mayo. Nays.
Especially when he's talking about blood pressure medicine. And if you marry somebody with the same name as someone from the Stern Show, delete his number as quick as you can.
Hi, Cat. Next time on the Darwin and Cat podcast.
His images all of a sudden were showing up on everyone's computer?
Yes. I don't know how it happens. That? Yes, because it's some sort of computer wizardry. Hey, let me open up my personal laptop. His porn appeared on everybody's shared device.